Hiya, my name is Jess and welcome to my channel, Have a Book at This. Today I'm going to be talking to you about things that I would like to see more of in books. Since starting BookTube I've become a lot more picky about what I read because I tend to want to read things that I know that I'm going to like, so I kind of waste less time reading slowly if I don't like a book, or not finishing a book, so wasting time there. And this means that I tend to look out for really specific things in books. That might be a certain theme that I'd like to see addressed more, or it might be a time period that I'm really interested in. But it started to make me think a lot about all the things that I would like to see more of in books, and I thought I would make a video on it. Also, if you've noticed that I'm filming in a new location today, that is because I'm filming downstairs in my house, where usually I film cooped up in my room. So you're going to see a lot of dogs in this video. Hello! He says hello. The first thing that I would like to see more of in books is a bigger variety in setting. This applies for me to both time period and location. So the majority of books I read are set either in America or England, mostly English speaking countries, and there's nothing wrong with that. I feel like the biggest publishing houses are in English speaking countries, and often the ones in English-speaking countries will publish authors from those countries who will set stories in places that they recognise, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I also think that it's a really big world, and it's a very big and a very interesting world, and I would love to read stories set in more unexpected places. Like, for example, when I read Daughter of Smoke and Bone, that was set in the Czech Republic, which was such an interesting location. It was somewhere that's maybe not represented very often in literature, and for me it was one of the most interesting aspects of the book. I've never read a book set in Latin America, for example, so I'd really like to read something set there. Maybe some different European countries that haven't got as much attention. I'd love to read something set in Russia as well. I think that's a really interesting location to choose. And also linked into this varied setting idea is time periods. I feel like the time periods that get the most attention are the World Wars, particularly World War II, and kind of late Victorian times, particularly Victorian England. But I'd love to read books set during different periods, like the 1200s or the 1600s, and I would specifically love it if you somehow like blended the two. Like, write me a book set in 1920s Berlin, or a book set in 1600s Barcelona. That would be absolutely amazing. And the next thing I would like to see more of in literature is a very big one, and that is diversity. This is something that I've especially noticed since expanding more into adult fiction. I feel like YA and children's literature is doing absolutely a brilliant job of including diversity in different sexualities, people of different ethnicities, people of different social classes, you know, genders and personality. All sorts of diversity I feel is being explored really, really thoroughly in that kind of age group. But since expanding into adult, I have noticed a distinct lack of diversity in a lot of the novels that I am reading. And that is not saying that that is true of all adult literature, because of course it isn't, but I feel like much more emphasis is put on the need for diversity in children's and young adults literature than it is in adults literature. And to me that's wrong, because I feel like diversity should be a given in all literature, whatever age group or target audience it has. So I would definitely like to see more diversity as a whole, because I think literature, film, TV, these are just such excellent mediums to showcase the importance of diversity in. The next thing I would love to see more of in books is stories told in more unique formats. So a while ago I read Love, Rosie, which has also been published as Where Rainbows End by Cecilia Ahern, and one of the things that I enjoyed most about that novel was the fact that it was written in letter format. So the entire novel was told in letters and emails and text messages. I've also read quite a few books that have been written in diary format, but I would definitely like to see more. A few authors have experimented with this format and it's received kind of mixed reviews. I also feel like there's so much opportunity with writing novels. It'd be really interesting to see people not just experiment with like different time periods and different settings, but also just different narratives. Next we have one that's slightly more specific, and that is multi-generational stories. So a while ago I read the Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender. Oh, did I get that title right? It's a very long title. What really drew me into that story was the fact that it was a multi-generational story. So it was the story of Ava Lavender and her mother and her grandmother, and I absolutely adored that. I loved seeing through this family history and seeing how issues back then affected the characters now. Another example of that is Jellicoe Road by Melina Marchetta, which is one of my favourite young adult books. I find stories that kind of incorporate a multi-generational element to be so layered and interesting, and it's something that I personally enjoy so much. And another thing that I would really love to see more of in books is interesting family dynamics. Often when I read books, I'm quite surprised to find that characters don't always get on excellently with their families. I say I'm quite surprised. I understand that in real life obviously there are people that don't get on with their families, but I think what I mean is a lot of the time the importance of family and the importance of friendships and those bonds can be a little bit understated or underdeveloped. This is kind of a bit of a pet peeve for me because my family are such a huge influence in my life. I love my family and I love my friends, and I love reading books that explore these really intricate bonds in ways, and I also love reading about families that actually like each other because I don't feel like that happens very often. Oh, and the final thing, I thought that was the last thing, it wasn't the last thing. The final thing I would love to see is strong female friendships. Feels like a lot of female friendships that I read about are secretly bitchy, and I don't know if I like that. I mean, I get that some friendships are like that, but I feel like it's equally as important to show female bromances. What is the female bromance called? Sister romance. Romance. I feel like romances should be explored just as often as bromances because frankly we just don't have enough of them in TV and in literature. I feel like there is more of a focus on bromances than romance. Romances doesn't sound like sister romances. Sisters before misters. I feel like to phrase it better, complex female relationships are what I'd like to see more because yes, sometimes you will fight with your friends, but that doesn't mean that it's a bad relationship. I feel like I want to see more female relationships that show the good, the bad and the ugly, but also show that these bonds that between women can be just as strong as bonds forged between men. And that's something really important that I feel should be put across so much more often than it is. So those are all the things that I would love to see more of in books. Is there anything you would like to see addressed more in literature? If so, leave a comment below and let me know because I'd be very interested to hear. But until then, thank you for watching and goodbye.